Good afternoon, everybody. Just bearing in mind that it is 12:30, I did want to get things kicked off and sort of keep on time. Thank you for joining us. I hope everyone can hear us well and they've been able to log in correctly. We are waiting for a couple of more people, but in the meantime, I will get things rolling. Thank you again for joining us. My name is Pascoe Bailey. If I don't know you or haven't met you, I'm the National Account Executive here at Testgrid. My role is purely working across the sort of financial services, banking, insurance, legal side of Testgrid's clients. And my role is working with clients to design and deliver both talent acquisition strategies and development and management of that talent as well. I also have Christine Young here. Christine is our lead psychologist, and she's here to help out with this presentation as well.
Hi everyone, welcome to our webinar.
Okay. So, integrity. I guess this webinar has been put together for clients. We've had some feedback from clients about some of the issues that they're coming across, and integrity has been, I guess, put forward as one of those key areas of interest, of course. So today's presentation, the information is intended to bring further attention to what we believe to be some of the biggest problems or causes associated with integrity or a lack thereof, both at an organisational level and also individual level. If we can provide insight and leave attendees asking questions whereby conversations are continued or further insights are shared, then I feel we've taken a step in the right direction, firstly to empowering individuals to speak out for what they believe, whilst also highlighting potential improvements and changes that can be made at an organisational level as well. At this stage, what I will say, I'm going to be sharing some insights, some business case, some examples where I feel perhaps that in the past few years that organisations and individuals, they've been publicly questioned and reviewed actually for situations that have at some point arisen from a lack of integrity. I'll point out at this stage, my intention is not to speak specifically about the organisations or the individuals. It's purely just to highlight the importance of integrity as a whole, and also the consequences already sort of experienced from these where that integrity is lacking. So, firstly, payment protection insurance. Now, many of you may be familiar with this. Payment protection insurance, it was widely sold as an add-on to loans, credit cards, mortgages, overdrafts, that sort of thing by banks and other credit providers. Now, I'm going to refer mainly to the UK situation with this. The purpose of the insurance was to protect the borrower in the circumstances that credit payments couldn't be made. In 2011, UK banks actually lost an attempt to prevent new regulations which restricted how and when PPI was to be sold, and the information that needed to be provided to individuals when they're actually selling that product as well. As you'll see, I mean, on the screen, that the most complained about financial product ever. Now that's a huge statement to make. Again, an industry-wide bill for the mis-selling of this product, which tops £20 billion. The controversy stemmed from a mis-selling of this product to individuals that were, misguided by lenders of the suitability of the insurance, unaware of the restrictions of the insurance when claiming, or even told that it was a compulsory part of the loan or overdraft. So a huge issue here, and is still ongoing to this day. The other issue was as well that the individuals actually selling this product were benefiting through various commission structures, payment structures, whatever that might be, but they were actually benefiting from this as well as the organisation benefiting. The impact, as I said, over £20 billion paid in compensation, and is claimed now today as the most complained about financial product ever. So a big problem. The The next one, a UK supermarket chain was actually investigated by the FCA, or what used to be known as the FSA in the UK, for overstating expected profits. Now, some again may be familiar with this situation. It actually resulted in 50% of the business market share being wiped off. Over £6 billion being wiped off the share value. Several executives were asked to step down from their positions, and actually more recently some groups of shareholders of that supermarket chain actually went to court in an attempt to retrieve somewhere in the region of about 50 pence per share of a total of about 8 billion shares that are actually listed in the marketplace. Again, huge oversights here from the business as a whole, so an organisational example, but also down to individuals at that senior executive level where mistakes were made. My third example, again very quickly, an individual in this situation, a UK supermarket tax chief, actually pleaded guilty to 2 counts of using confidential price-sensitive information to trade in shares, so an insider trading example. He was actually jailed, again, for these two offences. The actual individual in question utilised 2 online accounts in the name of their partner for trading and making profit in the region of about £80,000. The individual was ordered to pay about £200,000 and another £15,000 towards prosecution costs. Again, huge implications for this individual, but also the organisation at question as well. An immediate custodial sentence was actually imposed. The FCA, again, abuse of inside information in this way undermines the integrity of the UK financial market. So not just the individual, not just the business, but the UK financial market. So huge impact again on this. So that just takes us on to the next stage. What is integrity? And I'll pass this over to Christine just to handle this slide.
Thank you, Pascoe. I think those business cases really highlighted the importance of integrity and the negative impact on the organizations when integrity is not being emphasized in the work practice. So before we really look at what could we do as an industry to improve the situation, we need to really understand what integrity is. Now, here is a very simple statement that it comes from the Oxford Dictionary, because I think integrity is a very basic psychological construct in human beings that it needs to be explained in a simple terms. So I've got it here. Integrity is the quality of being honest and aligning your words and actions based on your moral principles and values, and of course keeping your promises. Even though this is a very plain statement and definition, but there are a few distinct elements that make up integrity. These distinct elements are related to 4 keywords. I would like you to keep those 4 keywords in your head while we are going to talk about specific elements and characteristics of integrity. So these 4 keywords are moral, words, actions, and aligning. So with that 4 keywords in your head, now let's look at what made up of integrity. So now, according to Stephen Carter, who is a very well-known professor of law at Yale University, and he writes many books on integrity in terms of leadership and sales. In his approach, he explained integrity requires 3 central key elements. The first one is discerning. So this is related to discerning what is right and wrong. The first element, this really captured the idea of integrity as how he calls degree of moral reflectiveness, in which every dimension of intelligence, including IQ, EQ, and others quotients, are coordinated and integrated and to brought forward to make a decision or a judgment. This is related to someone's ability to distinguish what is right or wrong. Next is acting. So this is referring to acting on what you have discerned in the first element, even at one's own personal cost. This is related to making clear commitments and keeping to them, even at one's own personal risk. Now, we often drawn to leaders who demonstrate this element of integrity subconsciously or openly. We're drawn to them because we trust that they will say what they truly believe and feel. They are exceeding clearly about what they really mean, even at risk to themselves and their career. The last element is speaking openly. So that is after one has discerned right from wrong and they have acted on what they really believe in, that person is unashamedly able to speak openly about what they believe in and how they have acted upon that. Having a high level of integrity really requires consistency throughout this cycle with all these three elements integrated. So if we break down integrity into these very distinct but interrelated elements, we are able to identify which specific element or mix of elements are missing and therefore will be required to develop in an individual or at an organizational level. We are more clear in terms of what types of intervention we need to plan to resolve these issues when there is a lack of integrity. Now, to look more closely at some of the main reasons why integrity is jeopardized at work, we need to consider two main levels, the self and the organizational level, because it is just impossible to understand the issue of integrity without understanding how these two levels interact, which is common sense. Each individual is influenced by their organization, and all organizations are comprised of individuals. So let's have a closer look at the self level first. Now I'll hand back to Pascoe. He's going to talk about some very common reasons why an individual would jeopardize their integrity at work and what we at Testgrid believe are some feasible solutions.
Thank you, Christine. Okay, so individual level, as Christine said, I'll go into a bit of detail. The first point, narrow-minded thinking. Now, regardless of position of an individual in any business, individuals play an integral role, as Christine said, in ensuring that integrity is not only promoted in the business, through day-to-day dealings with both customers and colleagues alike, but that also that they pass that on as well. It's a culture piece as well. So the people that are, let's just say, more senior execs, for example, they're the ones that are creating and breeding this culture as well. So that is a knock-on effect, which then builds that integrity of the organization as well. So narrow-minded thinking in an individual sense. Integrity can actually be jeopardized when individuals foresee perhaps an immediate gain and or fail to consider potential negative consequences or flow-on effect of these decisions. A short-term gain type of focus can actually result in damage not only to an individual's but also an organization's reputation, long-term strategy, and also success, overall success and performance of the business. Would have seen some of the examples at the beginning. It may seem like people can actually gain power quickly and easily if they're willing to cut corners, perhaps act without constraints of morality. But dishonesty may provide also instant gratification in the moment, but it will never last. I can think of several examples of people that lack integrity yet who are successful and who win without ever getting caught. Not the greatest example, but it creates a false perception of the path perhaps to success that one should follow. After all, each person could have gained that result that they wanted in the moment, but unfortunately, the momentary result comes at an incredibly high price and far-reaching consequences. The person that has lost their ability to be trusted as a person of integrity, which is, if not, one of the most valuable qualities that anyone can have, but they've lost that trust of individuals that they work with inside of the workplace or even outside of the workplace. Profit in dollars for an organization or power is only temporary. Profit in a network sense of people who actually trust you as a person of integrity, that is forever, and that's a personal branding thing as well. So what I'll do is I'll go on to cover perhaps what we might refer to perhaps the hiring strategy, if you like, just giving some insights in that sense. So people who have strategic thinking style, they think about the long-term strategy and impact of the business, and also willing to understand the bigger picture and the goals of the organisation. You're looking for individuals that exercise that good judgment. They enjoy not only the challenge of a complex problem, but also then analysing the information to form accurate decisions or conclusions. Also, authenticity. Hire someone that seeks alignment between their values and the values of the organisation, but also is willing to actually walk away from a situation where perhaps there is misalignment of values or principles or even intent of the situation. In addition, the acceptance where mistakes are made as well. Now, those that are willing to actually admit mistake, learn from them, and also move forward are far more respected than those that can't do that. The building of a personal brand, as I mentioned earlier, is always and always will be key. Ever more now, probably that technology actually brings us together as a community, and that's getting closer every day. Also, at this stage, I'll add organizations need to empower individuals to act in this way as well, and I know Christine will cover a little bit of that and discuss this a bit later on. Other quick key kind of traits, if you like, or character traits that we would say would foster integrity are things like honesty, sympathy, empathy, compassion, fairness, self-control, and also duty as well. What I'll do now, just the next sort of stage of that, I'll go on to perhaps another issue seen at this individual level, poor decision making. Now, this may result, and this is one example of a lack of product knowledge or customer understanding. This will likely result in an inability to make data-driven decisions. Again, a lot of the organizations that are attending today, data is imperative, and making decisions based on that, using relevant information to actually satisfy the client is so important. This could potentially also relate to underlying motivations and perhaps unwillingness to understand the customer or even the product that's being sold, or even potentially a lack of training as well, which is something for an organizational level that we can bring up later. So from a hiring strategy perspective, how do we reduce poor decision making? When hiring future talent, it's important to look for applicants that strive to comprehensively understand products, services, and their clients. Not only have the ability to understand technical details, but also seek to convey these to the customer. At the end of the day, it is the customers that are buying products, services, solutions, and whatever it is that the organisation is delivering. So it's got to be conveyed to the customers in a suitable way. Candidates also must have a preference of being well informed. From that information, they can actually capitalise on a variety of different sources of information. It enables them to investigate the industry and the business trends as well. Again, all of that information enables them to improve that fact-driven decision-making style, if you like. In addition to that, keeping up to date, so researching customers, as I said, competitors, which enables them to support that sales approach, and also, again, understanding of the industry to become a trusted advisor. So providing insights, education, sharing experiences with your clients and your customers will assist the individual in building strong strategic relationships whereby clients or customers, they gain real value from that relationship. And next, we'll look into self-awareness. Now, self-awareness, or a lack thereof, this is probably one of the key points that I'd like to emphasise in today's webinar. I can actually openly admit that when I joined the workforce, I lacked self-awareness. I didn't know how businesses operated, nor what was accepted or acceptable or not. All I had to base my decisions on were my morals, my values. But what I didn't have clear insights into were whether my values aligned to those of my organisation or my colleagues, the team that I was working or teams that I was collaborating with, key stakeholders and so on. Knowing what is important to you as an individual is critical to staying true to your own values and in turn acting with integrity. The hiring strategy, it's an interesting one. I mean, probably firstly and foremost, values-based assessments. Now, I'm not going to go into any sort of fine detail about assessment strategy, but these types of assessments are different from work style assessments. It delves more into what's important about them as an individual. There are also some other low-cost, simple exercises that we don't have to utilise the assessment piece that assist with facilitating a conversation in that interview setting around what is important to the individual. it is important to consider that the values of an individual are what underpins their workplace behaviour and also their personality. So that is the key to what that individual will do and how they'll behave. So alignment of this from an individual level to the organisation is critical. It is critical to improving engagement and also motivation. And again, I know Christine will go into a little bit more detail about that as well. Now, management style, again, an interesting one. Being able to adjust your management style or leadership style, not a key in favour of the word management, but leadership styles, you need to engage and motivate each employee, and that is critical to their success and the business success. We cannot take a cookie cutter, as we refer to it, approach to the management, as individuals are exactly that. They are individual. Intrinsic, extrinsic motivators, they need to be understood alongside the values and the career aspirations, just to ensure that the full potential of that talent is achieved and also is sustainable as well. So Christine, I'm going to pass over to you now, go on to sort of discuss integrity at the organisational level, and also go into a bit more detail about the motivation and engagement as well as employees.
Sure, thanks Pascoe. Now, organizations, as everybody knows, play a critical role in ensuring that integrity is promoted throughout the entire talent management cycle. That also need to be supported by having well-refined organizational policies around professional standards, and those policies should be enforced. Now, from a talent management perspective, one reason why an individual might jeopardize their integrity at work could be due to lack of a well-defined behavioral frameworks that guide them through this process and also enable them to feel empowered to make certain ethical decisions which reflect their own integrity as well. So in this case, employees are not quite sure how organizations see integrity, define integrity, or what integrity really means to them, the team and the organization, or is that really that important for the role success? So there are a lot of confusion there. Some of these questions, I've got it here, will probably guide you to rethink about your current values or your current organization situations, and then it will lead you to actually create some kind of solutions or to rethink the whole situation. So the first question here is integrity included as one of the organizational values? What does integrity really mean to your organization? Why is it important? This is a very important step to ensure your employees aware of why you do what you do and how you make certain business decisions. And the second question is, has integrity been well defined? Has it been defined in a measurable behavioral terms that reflect the values? This gives a very clear framework for your employees in terms of what exact behaviors is expected of them to demonstrate integrity. Different organizations have different definition, or it means different things when it talks about integrity upholding professional standards. So that has to be defined and create meaning to the organization as well as the individual. The last question here is, has integrity been well communicated? After you have included integrity in the values, included well-defined integrity, has that been communicated across the organization? Has the messages been consistent throughout all the entire talent management practice? Have those behaviors measured in the performance review? Are those aligned with the branding, marketing? Has those been included in any media communication? So everything needs to be sent across the whole talent management cycle. Now, the next reason why an employee may jeopardize their integrity is related to having unrealistic organizational financial targets, which is set following a very weak strategic business planning. What I'm referring here is the maturity of an organization in conducting comprehensive, accurate, and efficient analysis on their brand, markets, competitors, and their internal workforce before they proceed to set any financial targets. Now, how does this relate to integrity? This is highly relevant and critical. Let me give you an example. If you need a team of sales consultants who are required to manage very complex accounts and understand complex products, but you hire a team of sales professionals who are really good at business development, focusing on transactional type of selling, ultimately this team is not going to deliver what your organization expects and needs. This is because of a misalignment between the capability of the team hired and with the organizational strategies. Without a proper or thorough strategic business plan, or a deficient one, if you like, sales professionals are often unclear as to where the organization is heading to. In turn, they may be very much likely to ill-equipped with product knowledge and inaccurate market information. Then when these targets are set onto their shoulders are unrealistic, the team of sales will be very much work under a huge amount of pressure to deliver, because basically essentially it's their job. And they in turn are prone to make quick sales decisions, and to reach the targets, they probably increase the chance to jeopardize their own integrity. This is actually related to what Pascoe mentioned in terms of working under pressure, making a judgment, thinking about long terms from a self perspective. So what can we do to prevent this outcome? Well, I'm going to focus on only the human capital function of an organization, because this is our expertise area. So our recommendation is to develop a sustainable workforce by conducting a comprehensive workforce planning. And of course, there is so much more than just doing workforce planning. And indeed, workforce planning needs to be incorporated into your organization's business and financial planning processes. Now, we probably need another webinar solely to focus on workforce planning, but my point here is that it is critical to go through this process of identifying workforce capacity and capability to be able to meet the current and future organization's objectives. Workforce planning, what is required? The number one thing is required is all these data points, including all the demographic information of all the employees, like gender, age, their skill set, competencies, employment types, etc., etc. So if you have this data available, there are numbers of action points that you may want to consider, such as using the data for job analysis, identifying critical roles which required for future success, creating ideal profiles for these critical roles, look into your current workforce, think about how you can develop internal talents, or whether you need to hire external talent to deliver those success. If this data is not available, it is really about the time to set up the infrastructure or systems to make sure those data is collected for your future needs. And definitely this is something that Testgrid we offer to help to our clients. The next thing is really about refining hiring and assessment strategies, which also Pascoe touched on. This is really how we live and breathe with it. Testgrid strongly advocates to utilize psychometric sound and relevant behavioral assessment to select and develop a team of salespeople who respond well to change, rejection, cope well with stress, and a willingness to learn about the complex products rather than just pushing for sales. Cognitive ability assessments can also measure this ability to really think quickly and accurately when making decisions under pressure. So all this is around organization setting the right strategy so the individual feel empowered to make the right decision. Now my last point is about why an individual may jeopardize their integrity is when organizations only focus on measuring financial KPIs. That in itself is not an issue, and of course organizations wanted to see results and measure performance against financial results. That makes sense. But what I'm talking about in this case is that the process of measuring financial KPIs alone with no clear measurement of other KPIs such as integrity is the problem. Therefore, a apart from only defining and measuring financial KPIs, following from my earlier point a few slides ago, it is important to define what integrity really means and also define integrity in the behavioral terms. These behavioral indicators also need to be measured as part of their performance reviews. So performance reviews, during that process, integrity need to be measured in terms of how frequent the individual display integrity and the types of behaviors that they actually display. This way, your employees are aware of how important this is to them and to the organization, and to see that actually organization is measuring those means that this is highly valued in the work practice. So the final point I've got here is, apart from performance management, and this is actually part of the performance management, is to really understand what motivates your sales team. Each individual is very different in terms of what motivates them. Some of them are more responsive to extrinsic motivators, for example, financial rewards. Some are more motivated by intrinsic factors, such as searching for enjoyment in their work, passion, needs to love their job. Intrinsic motivators, in fact, are found to be the most prominent factors to sustain one's behavior because they create meaning within an individual. So if someone is only motivated by extrinsic rewards, there is a higher chance that the person, when is under pressure or pushed for sales, in turn they may jeopardize their integrity because they could be so short-sighted, only focusing on making the sales and forget about integrity, behaving ethically. This is not always the case, but it's very highly likely because that's what is a trend happening in the industry, and also that's research supported. Now, before I continue to keep talking, because this is very complex issues, today for this webinar, we would like to finish up here.
Yeah, look, thanks, Christine. As she said, look, we're quite tight with time today, so a very complex situation, and obviously lots of information. So what we'll do, I started off very negatively in providing some examples of bad or a lack of integrity. So I wanted to finish off with a quote actually I quite liked. I found a couple of weeks ago. The value of the trust others have in you goes beyond anything that can be measured, because it brings along with it limitless opportunities and endless possibilities. So a positive note, where those individuals that can work with integrity, it enables them to build relationships, strong, long-term, strategic relationships with people that can trust them, and that therefore has a knock-on effect, as it said, limitless opportunities and endless possibilities. So Amy Rees Anderson actually quite often writes for Forbes article. That was from the 28th of November in 2012. But I thought I'd just finish on that note. Just lastly, also we had a couple of minutes spare for some questions. So I know there's one or two that have been raised already. But if those attendees, if you've got any questions at all, please feel free to just jot those down now. We'll do a quick sort of 5-10 minutes of questions. If we don't get any of those answered, I will answer those on email as well. So I'll come back to the attendees that did raise questions and answer those. But Christine, did you just want to run through perhaps one or two of those there?
Yeah, I've got a question here. It's actually it's highly relevant to what we do. Is how can I test for integrity? This is a very good question because in a webinar we really don't have time to answer such in details. So as I mentioned in the webinar, first step is very critical to actually. First step is to define what integrity means in a behavioral terms. So you have to identify behavioral indicators which are measurable, and then select a behavioral assessment which could measure those elements. For example, there are a lot of behavioral assessment out there that could measure basic things like strategic long-term thinking, upholding standard, or behave ethically. That's how you measure those integrity elements. Or if you would like to measure specific sales behaviors in relation to integrity, there are specific sales assessments in the market as well, which we have to measure things like authenticity, research, and specialists. This is looking at selling style, whether the person is actually willing to understand a product rather than only pushing for sales. So we do have those in place as well. Hopefully I've answered that question, and otherwise I'm happy to email that email the individual answers to that attendees. I also have the next question here is, that's a very good question as well. Can we improve integrity in the team? Now, if we, I need to link this, the answers to the questions back to the slides that I have earlier, which is the 3 elements. Yes, of course you can improve integrity, but if we look at the 3 distinct areas, unfortunately not so much on the ability to make judgment, because that's related to your cognitive abilities, which are pretty stable throughout your life after your age 16. So in terms of the actual behaviors, yes, of course, you can improve them. In terms of the style of thinking, long-term strategy, it's all about increased awareness in an individual and to help them to understand why is it so important to behave ethically and adjust their behaviors accordingly. So the first step is increased self-awareness. That's the critical. We could do this by individual coaching. We could do this by using one of the behavioral assessments as the basis of the conversation, and then develop an individual plan to help the individual to improve and raise their awareness. So that is basically my answer to that question.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, Christy. There's one or two other questions. What we'll do is we'll respond to those individuals on email. For those attendees that we've not had the pleasure of meeting, what we will do, we'll send out some information to all attendees, and also if there are any questions at all, obviously do feel free to write back. Love to continue conversations with all of you, and also from an iterative point of view, I'd love to get some feedback as well from the attendees where possible, just to talk about perhaps the next steps. We've got some ideas on our side of where to take this conversation to next, but yeah, any feedback from you guys as the clients and customers of Testgrid, it would be great to get your feedback and go from there to continue this conversation. Thanks again for your time, everyone, and for your attendance. It's been a pleasure. Hopefully you found this time useful. Again, any questions at all, do let me know.
We'll be in touch. Thank you so much.
Thank you.